What is up, guys? ASMR Kackis here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today we have a video that's probably not going to do that well because it doesn't have exotic or secret shoved in the title, but I think it's going to be really helpful for those who need it. The brand new Prophecy Dungeon was released with Destiny 2 Season of Arrivals, and it has its own exclusive loot pool in terms of weapons. Well, in this video we're going to be going over all of those different weapons, taking a look at their PvP and PvE god rolls so you guys know what to go for and what to farm, because this is more relevant than ever. It turns out farming the Prophecy Dungeon is super reliable and a super great strategy to get good rolls, because when you go through the dungeon for your first time on a character, whatever loot you get is actually awarded to you every single time you go through after within that same week. So let's say you get the brand new IKELOS hand cannon from the first encounter. When you do it again on that character, you're also going to get that hand cannon. So you could just keep farming that first encounter over and over and over again until you get a fantastic roll. So again, it's very relevant to know the god rolls. So let's get started. And speaking of the IKELOS hand cannon, let's take a look at it. This is a legendary energy hand cannon. Looking at the stats, this belongs to the fastest firing, lowest damaging 180 RPM archetype. And stats wise, it does have a slightly higher stability than normal, but the rest are pretty average. Taking a look at the perks here, we have the normal collection of barrels. You're kind of looking for an increase in range / stability, although the range stat doesn't matter as much right now with hand cannons. But in that second perk column, the unique one is Seraph rounds. This is only going to spawn on the IKELOS weapons. So it says rounds over-penetrate targets and bounce off hard surfaces. And I went into the menagerie to test this. As you can see, it will bounce and damage enemies after it ricochets, or it will go through enemies and damage enemies beyond that enemy. It will not do both. So if you shoot through an enemy, it won't also ricochet. That's important to note. I also tested, it doesn't say this has any benefits, but does it have a secret range stat bonus? Turns out it does. As you can see, I'm doing the max damage. I'm at the very cusp of the max damage range with Seraph rounds on. I take them off and I put on appended mag and I do less damage. So Seraph rounds do offer probably around a +5 to range, just like armor piercing rounds would. So that's important to know as well. Now moving on to the first perk column, we have some interesting choices. Mainly, I'm looking at subsistence. Kills partially reload the magazine from reserves, but reserve capacity is reduced. I really like this with this style of hand cannon. You only have 9 rounds in a magazine, so being able to get rounds back every time you secure a kill is very useful. Subsistence is often overlooked, but not too long ago it did receive a big buff, lowering the reserve amount by less, so definitely worth checking it out. Triple tap is not bad either. Moving on to the second perk slot, we have some interesting choices. Vorpal weapon for more damage against supers if you want to use this in PvP, or potentially Rampage. Kills with this weapon temporarily increase damage stacks up to 3 times. That is the perfect combo with Subsistence. I'm going for a Seraph rounds, Subsistence, Rampage combo for my god roll in PvE. Now as for PvP, going for triple tap or potentially slideways where it'll partially reload the magazine and boost handling and stability, combining that with Vorpal weapon, again for super damage, or maybe even high impact reserves, because this does shoot so fast and get down on its magazine quickly, it's going to trigger high impact reserves to do more damage at the bottom of the magazine. But Rampage is always a good choice too. Moving on from there, we have another IKELOS weapon here with the legendary Energy Shotgun. Now taking a look at the stats here, this belongs to the very heavily used and arguably one of, if not the best archetype, the rapid fire frame archetype. Slugs are gunning for the top slot, but this is still a very good and relevant archetype. Stats are relatively average, but looking at the perks here, this is where things get interesting. So we have the normal assortment of barrels, and then we have, well, I think you're really looking for an extended mag perk if you're going for a PvE role, which is where this is going to be most relevant. The rapid fires are not amazing in PvP, so something like appended, tactical, or extended would be phenomenal. Then in that first perk slot, we have, of course, Feeding Frenzy, increasing reload after each kill. If you're planning to use this as an ad clearing monster, this is great, but we also have a relatively new perk, Lead from Gold. Picking up heavy ammo also grants ammo to this weapon, so that means you can put on all machine gun finders and scavengers, run a great machine gun, and then also have a fantastic shotgun that's stocking up on ammo as well. Now moving on to that second perk column, we got some great choices. Of course, Trench Barrel is phenomenal. Get a melee kill, and then the next 3 shots, or until a few seconds goes by, do like 50% more damage. Absolutely insane. But we also do have Vorpal Weapon for more damage against bosses and kind of majors as well, and that's going to be triggering more consistently in a boss fight than Trench Barrel. You don't have to get right next to the boss to trigger it. And we also do have Surrounded, which is great with shotguns, increasing the damage when enemies are close by. Rampage, if you want to use this again for ad clearing, is not a bad choice either. I think the PvE god roll is going to be Lead from Gold plus Trench Barrel, maybe Vorpal. Now for PvP, I think you're going for range increasing perks in the first 2 columns. Then you actually want Firmly Planted. Increases accuracy, stability, and handling when firing while crouched. Turns out this will work just after you go through a slide. So you can slide and then you'll be crouched and trigger Firmly Planted. And that increase to accuracy matters quite a bit with a shotgun. Combine that with Vorpal Weapon for supers, Rampage for more damage, or potentially Elemental Capacitor if you're using specifically an Arc subclass. That's going to increase handling and basically act like half of a quick draw, so that's something you should consider as well. Next up, we have the Widow's Bite Legendary Energy Sniper Rifle. Now, looking at the stats, this belongs to the Rapid Fire Frame archetype, so lowest damage, fastest firing. The stats are pretty average, but the handling is pretty darn high, and reload speed as well. Moving on from there to the perks, we've got some interesting choices. If you're going for a PvE role, you definitely want something to increase the magazine size. Then in the first perk column, we have, well, Lead from Gold makes an appearance again, and the same benefits apply here. Then we also do have Feeding Frenzy, and that's about it. In the second perk column, we have some interesting choices. Quickjaw is phenomenal in PvP. Demolitionist is phenomenal in PvE. It really depends what you want. I think the PvE god roll is going to be something like Tactical Mag with Lead from Gold and Demolitionist. Just a sniper rifle that gets your grenade back. Also, you can throw a grenade and instantly refill the magazine. But in PvP, you're likely going for maybe Feeding Frenzy, or honestly the new Pulse Monitor would be not terrible, like getting critically injured and then automatically reloading this weapon and combining it with Quickdraw. But honestly, the rapid fires aren't doing great right now, and there are better options out there. Alright, next up we have a weapon that's actually getting a lot of interest. It's the Death Adder Legendary Energy Submachine Gun. Taking a look at the stats, this belongs to the 900 RPM archetype of submachine guns, so same as the Recluse, and the stats are pretty average. Looking at the perks, however, we do have the normal assortment of barrels, and then, extended mags, accurized or steady rounds, maybe if you want a PvP role. In that first perk column, we do importantly have Feeding Frenzy, just like the Recluse, and very good on this style of SMG that shoots very fast and uses up its ammo quite often. Like, you're going to be reloading a lot with this weapon, so putting on Feeding Frenzy does matter. Maybe Subsistence as well, but again, because this chews through ammo so quickly, Subsistence's downside can come up. But for PvP, something like dynamic sway reduction to just make this a lot more accurate and usable at further ranges than you would expect is a pretty good choice too. In that second perk column, for PvE, most people are going for Dragonfly. Precision kills create an elemental damage explosion. So if you combine that with a Dragonfly spec and then have Feeding Frenzy, I think that is the PvE god roll. So like steady rounds or potentially an extended magazine perk plus Feeding Frenzy plus Dragonfly and Dragonfly spec. That's going to be a pretty relevant PvE monster for of level content, allowing you to clear ads extremely quickly. But for PvP, I think you're going for instead maybe Accurized for more range if you do get something to improve the stability in the barrels, and then Dynamic Sway Reduction in order to increase the accuracy and usability even further, and then combining that with either Rangefinder for again just more range, or Moving Target to let you strafe side to side faster and help you win gunfights. Or honestly, even Quick Draw to allow you to swap to this weapon super fast if you have a kinetic sniper rifle, for example. But it is time to move on to the Hoosegow Legendary Power Rocket Launcher. Looking at the stats here, this belongs to the adaptive frame archetype of rocket launchers, so that kind of means medium-ish blast radius and medium-ish velocity. It's kind of right in the middle. Then looking at the perks here, we do have an assortment of pretty relevant and good perks. So in the first column, if you want a big blast radius, which can really matter in PvP, Volatile Launch will give you the biggest increase. In the second perk column, Black Powder will further increase your blast radius. If you want to use it in PvE, however, Impact Casing gives you more damage on direct hits. So if you're planning to use this against bosses, that's what you want. But High Velocity Rounds is certainly a good choice as well in both PvP and PvE, frankly. Then we have the first perk choice here, and Field Prep immediately stands out, which is going to increase your reserves, so more shots in a damage phase, more shots in general, and increase the reload while crouched. Auto-loading holster is good as well, letting you shoot off a round, switch to a different weapon, switch back to this weapon, and it'll already be reloaded. And then tracking is pretty darn good for just most commonly getting your hits. Some people love it in PvP, some don't. I think it's a pretty good perk overall. Then in the second perk column, we do have kind of the damage all-star here with Cluster Bomb, and an extremely classic PvE god roll would be Impact Casing plus Field Prep plus Cluster Bomb. Like if you want to use this in a damage phase against a boss, that is what you're looking for. There are some nuanced choices here though. Kill Clip is not terrible if you are using this for ad clearing, killing majors and so on, but also Demolitionist I think is very good too. Not only are you getting grenade energy, but again, throwing a grenade gives you your ammo back immediately. So what you can do is shoot a shot, throw a grenade, and shoot another shot in extremely quick succession, and reloading would take a lot longer. Now for PvP, it's got to be Quick Draw here. Being able to really quickly swap to your rocket launcher, get a shot off, that is pretty darn important. So PvE god roll again is going to be potentially Black Powder or Impact Casing combined with Field Prep or Auto Loading, and then Cluster Bomb or Demolitionist. Now for PvP, it's going to be probably Volatile Launch, Black Powder combined with, potentially Tracking, and then Quick Draw or Cluster Bomb. And moving on from there, the last weapon within the dungeon loot pool is the Negative Space Legendary Sword. So taking a look at the stats, it belongs to the very average adaptive frame archetype. And then the perks, we do have a very unique choice here. So the normal assortment of blades is here: Jagged Edge for maximum damage, Tempered Edge and Honed Edge for a little bit more in between. Then we've got a bunch of different guards. And then we have the normal assortment in perk choice 1, like Energy Transfer, guarding while receiving damage generates class ability is what you want for PvP, and then Tireless Blade, ammo for heavy attacks, Relentless Strikes, ammo for light attacks, depending on what you want to do. In that second perk category, we have, I think for the first time ever on a sword, Disruption Break. breaking an enemy's shield with this weapon makes them more vulnerable to kinetic damage for a brief period, and that damage increase is pretty substantial, around a 50% damage increase. Now, importantly, it being on a sword matters quite a bit because usually Disruption Break is on, a random primary or special weapon. We don't often see it on heavies aside from a couple of rocket launchers. But with a sword, it's easier to activate from just one swing. So you can potentially swing, break a shield, activate Disruption Break, switch to a powerful kinetic shotgun like the IKELOS we looked at earlier with Vorpal or Trench Barrel, and then just go to town with a 50% damage bonus. That is nothing to scoff at. However, the downside to doing so is that probably just continuing to swing with the sword would be more effective in the damage department. And we do have some other great options here. Surrounded is fantastic with swords, giving a damage bonus pretty much all the time. Whirlwind Blade is traditionally like the best thing going, and Jagged Edge plus Relentless Strikes and Whirlwind Blade, that is the classic PvE god roll. And then Energy Transfer plus Counterattack, where blocking an attack immediately after guarding increases damage for a short time, would be a decent PvP roll. But I would recommend going for something with Disruption Break. That's kind of the perk that makes this sword unique. And so guys, that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, found this informative, and if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickKackis. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.